All right, section 5.3, in the beginning, we want to find degree of polynomials, number of terms, and indicate whether the polynomial is monomial, binomial, trinomial, or none of this. You know, when we talk about polynomial, we're talking about expression that has a variable of x in it. And when I write something like just 2x, or 3x plus 5y, or 5x minus 2y plus 10, I have only one term. I have two terms. Terms are always separated by plus or minus. And I have three terms. So if we ask you to indicate number of terms, one term, two term, three terms. Now let's look at this one. So in this polynomial, how many terms are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 terms. And then, you know, we have different terminology for it. Like if it's one term, for one term, we call it monomial. Binomial is when you have two terms. Trinomial, three terms. We don't have more than three. If more than three is none of this, okay? So we don't have any special name for this one. So if it's just one term, we call it monomial. Two term, we call it binomial. Three term, we call it trinomial. Now, what is degree of polynomial? In this example, the only variable I see is the x. What is the highest exponent of the x? The highest power of x is 4. So what is degree of this polynomial? Degree is 4. When you find the highest degree of the x, and so that is the leader of the group. Number sitting next to it, they call the leading coefficient. Leading coefficient is just this number sitting next to the leader. So what is degree of this polynomial? 4. What is the leading coefficient? Since this is a leader, 7. And how many terms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. These are some of the terminology that we normally use on the homework, but we don't really test you on that. Anyway, so now let's say I want to find degree of find the degree of this term. Now here, you don't have just one variables. Let's say I give you this one. Let's look at this first. What is degree of this? You have only one variable, right? So you said degree is 6. But when you have more than one variable, then you add. Power of this is 1, power of this is 5. So degree is 6. What is the degree of this one? 2.7. AB5, C2. Well, you don't have just one variables, you have 3, right? In that case, we have to add 2 plus 5 is 7 and 1 is 8. So we just say degree is 8, okay? So just in case you have one variable, then you could tell that degree is the highest power of that particular one. Like question is, what is degree of this one? And tell us whether it's monomial, trinomial, this one. First of all, is this monomial, binomial, or trinomial? It's just one term, right? There is no plus or minus that separate them. So since it's one term, it's monomial. And then what's the degree? Remember, this doesn't count. Power of this doesn't count because it's not a variable. Just think of the variable. I have a variable of x with power of 1, variable of y with power of 4. So 4 plus 5, 1 is 5. Degree is 5. Okay, remember, number, power of number doesn't count, just the variables. Okay, so here we want to know what the degree is and whether it's the monomial, binomial, or trinomial. Okay, let's look. First of all, there are 4 terms. Is not none of this. Monomial is just 1 term, binomial 2 terms, trinomial 3 terms. Anything beyond 3 terms, we don't have any name for it. So it's none. Because there are 4 terms, right? They're all separated. Now, look, what is the power of this one? 2 plus 1 is 3. What's the power of this? 1 plus 2 is 3. What's the power of this? 1. What's the highest one is 6. So degree is 6. See, there are 4 terms. For each term, you find the degree, and then you take the highest one. All right. Now, the next subject is, let's say this function is given. If we give you a value for x, let's say we say x is 5. How do you find the value of y? You take that 5 and you substitute here, you just say 5 plus 3 is 8, right? Instead of y, sometimes we show f of x. F of x and y are the same thing. F of x means there is a function with a variable of x. So let's say we have another equation is like this, look, y equal a minus 7, right? For this one, instead of y, you write f of a f of a means there is a function with letter of a, okay? So go back to this one, f of x and y are the same thing. So when we ask you to find f of 5, what does that mean, find f of 5? F of 5 means take 5 and substitute for the x in the functions. Take this 5, see, put it here. It's the same thing. So if I say I have these functions, f of x is equal to x2 plus 3x, find f of 4. That means take this 4 and substitute for the x. Not for x2, for x. So it would be 4 to power of 2 plus 3 times 4. So that's what f of something means, okay? Let's say I have two functions. P of x, x2 plus x plus 5, and q of x. The reason they're using different letters, so you understand there are different functions. One function, they call it p function, the other q function. It's just a different letter, but you don't mix it up with just one functions. So these two functions are given, two separate functions. They ask to find q of -8. What it means, go to q function, go here, go here and substitute -8 for the x. Now remember, anytime, I mentioned that in the earlier chapter, anytime you're substituting a negative number for the x, always bring it with a parenthesis. What does that mean? -8 quantity square. -8 to power of 2 means -8 times -8, which is 64. Okay, so what do I have here? I have 3 times 64 minus 1. It's a large number, I think it's 191. What if I ask you to find P of -1? Then you gotta go to these functions and you substitute -1 for x. Again, bring it with the parentheses. So it's 5. Now next, we want to introduce a term, they call it like terms. If you have 5 apples and somebody offered me 3 more apples, then I have what, 8, right? See, both are apple. So if I have 5x plus 3x, the variable part must be identical. Then you could add, correct? So look here. 7xy minus 5xy. They are like term. Why? Because both have x, y. It's like you have 7 of this item minus 5 of the same item. In that case, you subtract is 2xy. See, these are like terms. Now, let's say I have 10 AB2 plus 3A2B. Can I add these two? No. They are not like terms. These two must be identical. Okay? So if you have like terms, you could add, subtract, but if it's not, then no. Now, simplify by combining like terms. All right. So what you need to do is first you need to group like terms. Group like terms means these two both are like terms. Both have y. 7y and 5y is 12y. These two are also like terms. What is minus 4 minus 3? What is minus 4 minus 3? Minus 7. So it's negative 7 by 2. Okay? You cannot subtract these two, right? Because they are not like terms. So you have to group all the like terms and then simplify. All right, let's look at this one. Like combine like terms. All right, let's see. x2, 6x2 minus, if you don't see any number, how many x2 is? If you don't see any number, means it's always 1. 6x2 minus 1x2 is 5x2. Minus 3xy, let me use a different color shape here. And minus 1xy is negative 3, negative 1 is negative 4xy. 7y2 and 6y2 is 13 by 2. Okay, so see, what you do is you group all the like terms and add and or subtract. I want to add these two polynomials. we want to add minus 12x2 negative 11xy plus 11y2 and add it to that. Sometimes you could, if you don't want to do it horizontally, you could do it vertically, as long as you line up the like terms. Like here, you see the second one is x2, you put x2 here. You have 6xy, you line it up with xy. And 12, you put it here. That's another way to do it. Instead of horizontal addition or subtraction, you could do it like this. So you line up all the like terms, you see that? All right, so minus 12, positive 1, minus 11, negative 11, positive 6, negative 5, 11 plus 12, 23 by 2. You could also do it this way. Find the sum of and see, like this one. Find the sum of 2t squared minus 5t plus 12 and 2t plus 6. So you could either do it horizontally. Let me show you the horizontally first. And add 2t plus 6. And then you just look for a like term. There is no like term for t squared, so we just write it. Negative 5t and positive 2t, negative 3t. 12 and 6 is 18, okay? That's one way to do it. If you want to do it in a horizontal, using horizontal method, because you could put it all together. Or if you want to, by vertical method, you just write the first one. And then you line up all the like terms. When it comes to addition, we don't really need a parentheses, you know? So in that case, I can just take the parentheses out. So 7x3y and 5x3y both are like terms. So that would make it 12. Now, negative 5xy and positive xy cancel. Like, what is negative 5 plus 5? Nothing, right? Cancel. And do we have another x? No, just the 8x. See, 8x doesn't have any other like terms. And 8, they're not like terms. again, when you see a positive sign or addition, then you could actually take it out. You know why? Because look, if I put a 1 here and I distribute 1, that doesn't change anything. 1 times -6 is -6. 1 times +4 is positive. See? So in addition, you don't really need the parentheses, as I said, because if you put a y before the parenthesis, 1 before the parenthesis, that doesn't change anything. Okay, so let's start. Okay, this 2 is 7 by 2 power of 4. -10y2, and that is -6y2. x2, it doesn't have any other like terms, and this 2 is 1. So remember again, when it's addition, you don't need the parentheses. So what you have in the parentheses, you just write that down. No sign will change. Okay. These two, 1 x by 2 and 7 is 8 x by 2. They don't have to be in any order, but I just write it like this because it sounds like this is the highest power. 2x3, could write it in any order. These two are like terms. 3x2 and -1x2 is 2x2 and -6. So these are all additions. Next, we are looking at subtractions. Subtraction is important, okay? Like if you have here, look, if you have -3 times 2x plus 5y, look here. What does negative does when you distribute? It changes the sign, right? Let's look at this one. What does negative do to these parentheses? If you don't see any number, you could always throw a 1 here. When you distribute, what -1 does, it switches the sign here. So instead of +7x, you have -7x and +9y. See, that's what negative does. If you had a positive, positive doesn't change anything. Look, when you distribute positive, does that change anything? No, still is 7x minus 9y. It's just a negative would switch the sign all terms within the parentheses. That happens when you have a subtractions. So now we have subtract see that? The first parenthesis we don't need it. Let's put it here, 1 and 1. Look. Does 1 change anything when you distribute? No. But when you put a -1 here, -1 when you distribute is switch the sign. So you have -2y2, +2y, and -4. See, that's what subtraction does to the second parenthesis. It switch the sign. And then you look for the like terms. These two cancel, -2y and +2y, and -4 and +6 is +2. So now we want to have another subtraction and simplify. Just put a 1 before. Another subtractions. So remember what negative does is switch the sign. Why? Because if you put a -1 and distribute, make it positive x2 minus 2x minus 3, see? And the first one doesn't need parentheses, because if you put a 1 here, it doesn't change anything. All right. So 9x2 plus 1 is 10x2. -8x and -2x, -8, -2 is -10x. 1 and 3 is -2. All right, so the last one is when we ask you subtract, look, subtract 5 from 12. How would you do that? Subtract let's say subtract $5 from $12. You write it as 12 minus 5, right? You write it like that, correct? So what you have after the word from, you put that first and then the 5. Regardless the value, okay? So just try to remember example that you know the answer. Subtract $5 from $12. What you have after the word from, you write that first and then that one, okay? Look at here. Subtract 10 from -6, okay? Again, what you have after the word from, you write that first. And then negative. Then you put the 10 here. See? Now you have -6, -10 is -16. So what is important is for you to remember this part. What you have after the word from, you gotta write that, put a negative, and then the other one, okay? So with that understanding, let's look at this. Subtract 9x2 plus 12x from 7x2 plus 8x. So after the word from, write that first. Put a negative sign, and then put this one, the first one. And always put it in the parentheses. Okay? First one doesn't need a parenthesis. See, you must follow the rule, otherwise there's a chance that you make a mistake if you just put this one first and then the other one, okay? So you gotta be careful. Again, think of the example that you know already. $5 from 12 is always 12 minus 12. 12 is what? What you have after the word from. What you have after the word from, you put that first. Now this is a tough one. Subtract 6x plus 3 from the sum of 9x2 plus 7x plus 9 and 3x2 plus 6x minus 12. So you got to add these two to get a sum of these two. You got to find sum of these two first and then put it up, because it's after the word from, right? How do I add these two? 9x and 3 is 12x2. 6 and 7 is 13x minus 3, okay? So now you have this. You have subtract 6x plus 3 from this. So you got to write this first because this comes after the word from. Negative 6x plus 3. So it's 12x2 plus 13x minus 3 minus 6x minus 3. So it's 12x2, 7x minus 6. Okay, So that would be end of section 5.3, chapter 5.